So today I was browsing Pinterest and looking at different things to talk about, and I found a couple quotes that really stuck out to me about codependency, and I figured it would be like a cool thing for me to discuss today. And I found this sheet. It's called "What is Codependency?" and it has like a checklist. And so I figured that I would go through the checklist and share my experiences with it and what I've noticed about myself. So, starting with number one, they are numbered, but I'm giving them numbers so it's easier. Number one, you focus on other people and their problems, like caretaking, fixing, advice giving, doing for others, even when it negatively impacts your mental health, physical health, finances, etc. So, I noticed that I'm not as bad as it. I'm not as bad with it as I used to be. But when I met my current partner, James, I actually had a lot of these qualities, and I didn't notice it until I met him because it was something that I guess I had acquired in my childhood. But I didn't realize how codependent I was until I knew him. And I realized that a lot because when I first found out that he was an addict and that he was having issues with relapsing, I actually took it upon myself to call. I remember one time I was actually sitting in the parking lot of my old job before I was working, and I was like calling a bunch of different phone numbers, seeing if anybody had any openings, any beds open or whatever. And that was when I realized that when they were saying like, okay, well if it's not for you, we can't really talk to you. I'm like, okay, well I can't really do that, but I would do that. And when he was in rehab, I would always like buy him whatever he needed. I would like make sure he always had money on his books to buy stuff. And I was always visiting him. Whenever there was a visitation day, I would make sure that I went down there. And even if it took 2 hours and I had to get up at 5 in the morning, I was always there. And I always wanted to be like the perfect support system and everything. And like, he would have his time away in rehab, and he would, be more independent like afterwards. And because he'd spent like a month away from everything, he was feeling good about himself, and I would not be okay with that after he came back because I was expecting, he would come back and he would be spending time with me like before, and we'd be super close. And I didn't realize how clingy and like unhealthy that was until like later on. But yeah, so that is something that I did. I would always you know focus on giving my time and my money and everything, and making sure that I would make his life as easy as possible, even if he didn't even ask. So let's see. You're extremely self-critical. It's number two. Yes, I am very self-critical. I have developed a perfectionist mindset, even though I never knew I was a perfectionist. Like I would always want everything to be squared away, perfect. Everything is always accounted for, and I always made sure that like I did the best in making myself look as good as I could, like outwardly, like family life, and the way my life was going, and what I was doing with my life. Like everything had to be perfect so nobody would ever have to say anything or have anything bad to say, which yeah, it doesn't really work out like that. People will always have something to say. But I tried to make my life as perfect as possible, and I would really get down on myself if I thought I failed in any specific area. And so, yeah, that's something that I had a hard time with, is being very self-critical, and I still am to this day. I mean, like, just with a lot of things. I mean, it's mostly based on like me as a person, because I feel like my life is pretty good now, and I'm always trying to be better. But I will just like run myself into the ground, trying to make sure I get everything done and everything accounted for, and it's really hard. And like, I don't know. I feel like even with just like physical things, like this is something I've noticed a lot more now that I'm making videos, or even just taking pictures of myself or looking at myself more, as my tooth. Like, it drives me crazy. And I've had braces like twice or three times on the bottom, and it's still like that because I need my wisdom teeth pulled, which I don't really want to do because it sounds like it's going to be really terrible. But I don't know. They don't give me any pain, but it's just annoying, like, to be talking and then I just see, like, this tooth poking out all the time. And I don't know. It's just one of those things that is just, like, irritates me, and I can't do anything about it right now. And I don't know. So, but yeah, I'm very self-critical. Number three, you feel responsible for everyone and everything. Yes, I do. Again, it's not as bad as it used to be, but I do feel responsible, or I did feel responsible for, like, everything, like, making sure he was okay and, situated and never needed anything. And then like now with our daughter, I feel like that with her. I want to make sure she's good and never needs anything. And now, like with his brother, we're really close with his brother. I want to make sure that he's fine and stuff. And I mean, it's not so bad with my family because I guess I don't talk to them as often as his family because we kind of like, live with them and around them. But I'm always very concerned still about how other people are feeling and like if they're okay and everything. But I realize that like I can't really control anything except myself. So it's kind of making things easier when I keep it in perspective. But I don't know. I guess it gets confused with, being over caring or, like just trying to be a good person. But I mean, I guess sometimes the lines can be a little bit blurred. But yeah, I can totally relate to that. Number, I don't know, 4. You experience high levels of guilt and shame. Yeah, I do tend to make myself feel guilty a lot if I think I failed on any of the things that I had, you know, thought for myself or planned for myself or any of the things that I wanted to do or trying to be a perfectionist. If I failed on any of those, like being the perfect partner, being the perfect mother, being the perfect friend, being the perfect sister, yeah, it's really easy to make myself feel guilty on any of those, because I could have done better, I could have done more, I shouldn't have been so down, or I shouldn't have been so this or that or whatever. And yeah, it's really easy to fall into that frame of mind. And I just have to remember to tell myself that I did the best I could, and if there was anything that needed to be improved, I can improve on it for next time. Okay, I don't know how to number these anymore because I'm getting lost. But you absorb other people's feelings. That was a big one, especially when he was actively using, or even not, even when he was just like depressed or not doing well or anything, I would absorb that, and then I would feel that way, and then we would both just be stuck in this, constant cycle of just being sad and down and mad and basically any other, negative emotion. But now it's getting a little bit easier to separate myself. Like I still feel like I'm affected when he's around me if he's not doing well, but it's really easy to get sucked into that, and I just need to focus on, doing what I can, because if I get sucked into it, then we're just both going to be stuck in the cycle again. So I just have to focus on doing what's best for me and knowing that I'm not ignoring him. If he doesn't need anything from me, then I just need to be focused on what I can do for myself and keeping myself positive, and then I will be in the best state of mind if he needs anything, if there's anything that I can do to be a support system. But it's not my job to take on whatever he's feeling and try to fix it, because it's normal to feel down or whatever. And if he needs help, he will let me know. You're a people pleaser, afraid of disappointing or upsetting others. Yes. It kind of ties in with, some of the other ones. Like I always want to be everybody's, best friend, or I want them to think very highly of me. I don't want them to have any negative opinions of me because I already have those about myself. And so like it makes me feel good about myself as a person if I know that, I'm all these other things for everybody else too. You have trouble setting boundaries and being assertive. Yes, especially when he was actively using, it was very difficult to come up with boundaries that worked for me and that I didn't think were too passive, but I didn't think were too assertive either. And that was really hard because obviously, you want the person to know that you still care about them, but you're just doing what's best for you and, by extension, what's best for them. So yeah, it was really hard to have boundaries, but luckily, his family was very supportive of, us being better and healthy, and so they would help me, with that if I ever needed help or if I was close to slipping and going back on them. And also my sponsor through Naranon. I go to Naranon meetings and I actually have a sponsor there, so she helped me a lot too. I would always call her on the phone or tell her if I had any issues, and she was always there to talk about them with me, even if I was, sobbing and she couldn't understand a word I was saying. So you ignore your own feelings and needs, possibly numbing them with food, alcohol, or drugs. No, I mean, I guess maybe in the past, I would think like, oh, I should have a drink right now, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of just like numb myself other ways, like just getting lost in my head and not thinking about things or something, just being stuck in a bad mood. Like I don't really rely on things like that because I don't know. I just never really have. But yeah, I mean, it does. I do ignore my feelings sometimes, when it gets too much and I get stuck in my head, and then I just get irritated because I can't focus on all the things I'm trying to think about, even though it doesn't even matter. And yeah, so that happens a lot too. Intimacy, open communication, and trust are difficult. So yeah, it's really hard to be trusting, especially with somebody who has addiction issues. But it's hard to do that. It's also hard to openly communicate because it's easy to fall back into the people pleasing aspect where you don't want to share your own opinions. You don't want to be close with anybody because you don't want to be on their bad side. You don't want to risk losing them. And, if you're codependent, you don't want to be, losing anybody because that's where your codependency is. You're codependent on other people or, one specific person. So if you openly communicate how you feel, or you want to set boundaries, or you want to be close with someone, it's difficult because you don't want to risk losing them and jeopardizing that relationship that you have with them. So yes, that was something that was difficult for me. I feel like I'm saying that with all of them, but it's true. So yeah, you have to realize that boundaries and communication and all of those things are important for you because you can't just be a doormat for everybody. You have to have your own self that you are investing in, because if not, then you're like an empty shell of what you could be. You act like a martyr, taking care of everyone else, giving without receiving, and then feeling angry, resentful, and taken advantage of. Yeah, so that's, just kind of ties in, they all kind of tie in together in their own way, but yeah, like I would always think like, oh, well, I have to do all these things and, it's what I signed up for, but, why do they get to do this or that or whatever? And yeah, you kind of do turn yourself into a martyr because, you take on all these responsibilities, especially some that nobody asked you to, but you do anyways, and you use it to feel good about yourself, but then you resent other people for not having to do them, or for not having to, or not thanking you, or putting you in a higher regard, or putting you on a pedestal for doing all these things when nobody asked you to do them, but you do them because it makes you feel good. So it becomes this negative cycle in itself, and nobody likes to live with resentments because then that just spills over into everything else, and then you just have a very negative filled life. So yeah, that's another thing. You're a perfectionist. I feel like I already talked about that a little bit. You tend to overwork and overschedule yourself. Yes, because that's the perfectionist thing. You want to be the best worker, you want to do all the things, you want to do everything perfect, and you don't want to spend any downtime being lazy, even though it's necessary to be healthy, to take some time for self-care and relaxation. But when you're a perfectionist and you want to be the best and the most amazing and the most perfect of everything, then you just overstress yourself, you overwork yourself, you do too many things, you have too much on your plate, and then that's when the martyrdom starts again, because then you have all these resentments over other people, like, well, why do I have to do all these things when you're the one who signed up for it yourself? You can be controlling, nagging, and critical of others because you want a perfectionist life. You want to be a perfectionist, you want the perfect life, you want the perfect this, perfect that. So if other people don't live up to those expectations that you have of them like you have of yourself, which they won't, then you become nagging and controlling and all sorts of other things, which you can't control anything or anyone but yourself. And the sooner I realized that, the much easier everything became. So yes, you do end up being like that. And even I would just turn into that anyways because I was so unhappy, especially with myself, that, would just spill over, and then I would become someone who was nagging and controlling and just pessimistic all the time, and it was just terrible. So yeah, it spills over into everything. And last one, you crave predictability, structure, and certainty. Yes, I like when I know what's happening because then I can, try to make myself behave, as best I can in that situation. And you can't do that because then it stresses you out and then you become the nagging, controlling person again. Because life is about unpredictability. There's nothing certain, everything changes all the time. But for me, I don't like that because I like to know what's coming, I like to know how to react to it, and I like to have everything planned out. And I'm slowly but surely becoming a little bit better with that, but I don't know. I guess that's one good thing about being with him too, along with all the other ones, of course. But something that I've really noticed is that it's really cool that he even, because I feel like when they're, in active addiction, they're very unpredictable. But his personality in and of itself just normally is to be very spontaneous. And I really like that, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't really mesh well with my wanting to be predictable and have everything be normal and according to schedule. But I think it really helps to push me out of my comfort zone. So I do really appreciate him for that too, on top of everything else. So, but yeah, so that was just, some thoughts of mine on codependency. And if you have any tips or anything that you've experienced with yourself being codependent, or anything that you've learned to kind of make things easier in your recovery of being codependent, feel free to let me know, because I'm always open to suggestions, because I know that I'm not perfect, even if I like to pretend that I am. So yeah, leave your comments, leave your messages, let me know anything that's on your mind about it, and I will see you later. Bye.